when you hire someone to do the same job 4 times, or hire 4 people to do the one job, if any of them disagreed, so they would all fill out the same spreadsheet. They would all say whether it was a first lien, second lien, what back taxes and all that. The only time I had to do any of my own research was if they disagreed on it.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, Yonah Weiss. As always, thank you so much for joining us once again for an incredible episode. Today we have with us Sam Wilson of the Bricken Investment Group. Sam, I am so pleased you're joining me. I was very fortunate to be a guest on your show. So if you guys want to check out another awesome real estate podcast, it's called the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Podcast with Sam Wilson. So check that out. What's going on today, Sam?
Living the dream, man. How are you today, Yonah?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank God. I mean, love to hear what you mean by that. What does that mean to you right now, living the dream?
Dreams can either be nightmares or they can so I guess you get to choose what that means. Today, I woke up healthy, which I say that health is wealth. So it's the ultimate wealth. It's the ultimate, health and time, probably the ultimate 2 currencies. And so, I woke up with at least plenty of one of those. That's a dream come true for a lot of people that don't have it.
Yeah, that is extremely important. And if you don't have health, you don't have much of anything. I remember actually, you just brought back a amazing memory that I had. There was just going back 20 years back, there was a World War II veteran who I used to pray with in the synagogue every morning. And he was an incredible man. He was in his 80s at the time. He was actually a lieutenant. He wrote a book. It's called Lieutenant Birnbaum. He was an autobiography, basically. A really great book. It talks about how he was a Jewish boy, grew up in America, and ended up becoming an officer in the U.S. Army and helped to liberate several concentration camps. And he spoke Yiddish because he's Jewish, and he was able to kind of be as a go-between between a lot of the people there. Anyways, he told me once, and he was in his 80s at the time, he said, health is everything. He said, if you don't have health, you won't have anything in life. And, he had, children and many grandchildren, great-grandchildren at that point. And it was a wonderful man, very happy person. But that to me just like stuck. So when you said that, it just triggered that memory. I was just spending the time with him. He said, if you don't have health, you don't have anything.
Anything. That's absolutely right. Yeah, he hit it on the head. That's it.
And very it's just, cool. It's when you can recognize and be grateful for, you think, you take for granted that you wake up in the morning, and take for granted that you can breathe and you have, healthy limbs and organs. There's so much that needs to go into that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Just, it's good to start the day off right.
Absolutely.
Sam, you've done a lot. I mean, obviously you got the great podcast called How to Scale Commercial Real Estate, right? So where'd you come up with that name? Because you've scaled, right? And you're continuing to scale, right? I think is that the point?
Yeah, that's the point of the show. I mean, basically, we bring on guests that have gone from, and the typical progression in real estate, of course, is, we start with a single family and we might buy 2 or 10 or 20 or 60 in my case. In the end, you find out that this is it's not scalable. It's not repeatable. And I think that's a struggle I've run into across several different industries I've been involved in. At some point, you find out that this business, you can't wash, rinse, repeat in a meaningful way. Yes, you can do it. And yes, you can make money. And I made great money in the single family space, but it didn't give me that ultimate currency. Like we're talking about health, the other one being time. Mm-hmm. It didn't give me that, or time and money, of course, they go hand in hand, but it didn't give me time back. It was still just bought myself another job. So really wanted to interview the best and the brightest in the industry and find out what they did to, scale the real estate business, how they got their time back. What does that look like, for them to grow? And that's the point of the show, is how to scale. That's how I came with the name of it. Like, how do you scale? Well, let's find out.
Yeah. I mean, and so that's what you're in the process of doing, right? Scaling from single families into commercial, multifamily.
Yep. You got it. Yeah. We just closed 246 units in Winston-Salem here about a month ago. With me and some partners. We got some boat and RV storage we're developing, about parking lots and parking garages pre-pandemic. Don't do that anymore. But yeah, I mean, that's it. How to scale and grow.
How to scale and grow. What would you say is the most creative deal that you've ever done?
Man, I wish I had a better story here. Man, I mean, back in the foreclosure days were fun because we were buying at the courthouse steps. Those days were fun. That was kind of the Wild West of, I mean, it's such an archaic process. If you haven't gone and actually done your own title search and gone and gotten your own cashier's checks and gone down with the good old boys standing at the courthouse steps, haggling with millions of dollars at a time over real estate and trading money right there on the courthouse steps with the attorneys on, that are auctioning these things off. Like, it's like, wait, this process hasn't changed in years. It's nuts. Like, why are we still doing it this way? Like, literally on the courthouse steps. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of fun deals inside of that where you bought houses that were, selling already with other realtors in 3 weeks. They're already slated to close, and the people didn't bother to tell the, foreclosing mortgage company that, hey, by the way, I'm going to close in 3 weeks. Please postpone my foreclosure. They didn't bother to tell the real estate agents or anybody else. And suddenly a new guy's standing there going, I own the house now. And then it's, stuff like that. It's just, those were wild times of taking pocketfuls of money to the front doors of houses you bought and saying, hey, I'll trade you cash for keys, get out in 10 days and I'll give you a pile of money. So, just stuff like that.
Wow. And that's actually worked. I mean, for you in those cases, the cash for keys, I mean, I've heard that a lot in terms of evictions. Yeah,
it did. I only had one cash for keys really go sour. But most of the time it did because I just told him I'll give you my pitch. It was just like, look, and I always came up as really apologetic, like, hey, I'm so sorry, which I am sorry. I mean, it sucks to see people lose their house. That sucks. But I wasn't the one that didn't pay their mortgage either. So I can't get too far in the weeds on that. But I'd say, hey guys, look, I'm really sorry. I just want to let you know there's a super awkward conversation for me. So I really don't know how to say this. And I'd act like I was nervous because I kind of was a little bit. I'd say, I don't know how to say this, but I bought your house today at the foreclosure auction. And I've got two options. I can either go through the formal eviction process and spend this pile of money on an attorney and actually have you guys get kicked out and have an eviction plus a foreclosure on your record, or I can just give you the money and you guys can be out and say maybe 7 to 10 days. Which one do you prefer? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, we'll take the money.
Yeah.
Cool. And then in 10 days, I'd show back up and we'd trade phone number. In 10 days, I'd show back up and give them a handful of money and walk through the house and make sure it was empty and off to the races.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of those cases, it's, it's money that they really need. And that's why they couldn't pay their mortgage. And unfortunately, that speaks.
But it does. But going back to the scale idea, like you can't do that at scale.
Yeah. Right.
It takes me or someone that's working directly with me with a lot of empathy. And, it's just, there's a lot of nuance to getting that, cash for keys across the finish line. And I don't want to do that. It's not where I want to spend my time.
It's unfortunate that things like that still exist. And I hear, what's your opinion about the current state of the economy right now? Do you see something like it coming back as it was, 10 years ago where there was tons of foreclosures going on? Do you see that happen? Obviously they happen all the time, but not at the volume that it did back then. Do you see it happening again at a certain volume?
I have no idea.
You don't care probably right now.
I'm just our monetary irresponsibility and just the massive printing. I would have said that at some point we were going to have a correction, but I'm not sure how we can correct back to and I'm no economist, right? I'm not a guy that understands all the flow of how money comes in and out. All I know is that when you say you have an auction, right? And I'll get to your question here eventually, and everybody has $100 in their pocket and they're bidding on the one item in the center of the room. But then the owner walks into the room and he puts another $1,000 in everybody's bucket sitting next to him for them to bid. What happens to the price of the item? What goes up? Suddenly now there was maybe 10 people in there bidding, but now they got $1,100. Well, shoot, if I got $1,100, I might bid up 11. So now that item just went up in price, exponentially. And so I don't know if we're going to see a quote unquote correction, but what's the baseline now? What may have been cheap, or what may be expensive today could be super cheap in 2 years. Mm-hmm. Who knows? I don't know. Right. And there's an argument, the great inflation deflation debate between Peter Schiff and Harry Dent and all these other guys that are out there. One says we're going to have deflation. The other says, man, watch out for runaway inflation. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, out of curiosity, but it seems like you've moved on from that space quite a bit, pretty much transitioned into commercial and trying to, like we said, scale.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the point of it is to find higher returns on time. Mm-hmm. And find things that not just for the paycheck side of things, but to find things where you can implement teams. I mean, there's just things, as you know, on the multifamily side that you can do. There's enough money in the pot and we're generating enough revenue where we can pay the right people to have the right seats on the bus, as opposed to at a smaller, DIY sort of thing where there's just not enough money to go around to actually pay the right people to get the jobs done, which means that I'm doing all of it.
That means, you got to use your time as the resource instead of the money.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Awesome. So on that subject, I'm really curious because I know you've used your time quite efficiently in terms of hiring VAs. Okay, it's relative.
I don't feel that way all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, I can do such a better job with my time. But anyway, carry on.
No, I feel that way also. I mean, I definitely have assistants and I have some things doing, especially with the podcast and certain things in my business. And I couldn't do anything that I do for the cost segregation business if it wasn't for the huge team that I have that's running that. But in terms of, things that you're getting done and growing your business, what have you, I'm just out of curiosity, what have you hired, virtual assistants to do? And what was that process like on onboarding them?
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, and I'll rewind a little bit. I won't spend too much time here, but in the foreclosure business, I had a whole team of VAs that were working for us because, and this was something fun that we developed with the help of a coach that we had hired. He kind of turned us on to the virtual assistant idea. But was that you had to have title search done, right? So like title search at a foreclosure, you can be the proud owner of a second mortgage at a foreclosure auction and not know it. Like until you understand chain of title and until you understand how these things move through the system and then what can actually be bought at the foreclosure auction, you could wind up owning a second mortgage and have a first mortgage that already has the house underwater, right? So if you don't know what you're buying, you could even be buying an HOA lien. I mean, HOAs can foreclose. So you got to know what you're buying. And not that it's always bad to buy a second. If you know what the value of the first is, it still might be a bargain buy. If you're buying an HOA lien, it might be that there's not much in the way of a first. They just didn't pay their HOA dues. So finding out why and doing your title search was a big deal. But what we discovered was that title search, especially when you're in a county where, here in Shelby County in Memphis, Tennessee, we were having just loads of foreclosures. I mean, tons of them. So you're vetting 80 to 100 houses a week going, okay, I got to know if this title is clean on 80 or 100 houses. How do you do that at scale? Well, you can't hire it out at $200 a whack. You just can't do it. I mean, you'll just run out of money before you ever get a house bought. So that said, I figured out how to do my own title search. So I got really, really good at title search. And then I turned around and used Screencast-O-Matic, or you can use Loom or things like that, where you can record your screen as you talk. And then I hired 4 VAs to do the same exact jobs. These were virtual assistants that had a history in title search. And I taught them how to do a title search, what to research, how to go through the Shelby County and then Tipton County and then the outlying counties around Memphis, because we were buying a few different counties. And each county has its own series of how to actually get to the deed or the registrar's office and find. Anyway, taught them all how to do their own research, but all of them did the exact same work over and over. When you hire someone to do the same job 4 times, or hire 4 people to do the one job, if any of them disagreed, so they would all fill out the same spreadsheet. They would all say whether it was a first lien, second lien, what back taxes and all that. The only time I had to do any of my own research was if they disagreed on it. The one title searcher says, no, there's a first, and the next title searcher says, no, man, this is a second mortgage. And I'd say, okay, red flag, let me go back and manually do the work myself, which was, maybe once a week. So that cut down I probably cut 20 or 25 hours a week of doing title search out. That was one way that I used virtual assistants. It was really great. I've had another virtual assistant. She's worked for me for probably 5 years, and she helps out everything podcast related. I mean, anything and everything. You can email podcast at Brick and Investment Group. She gets your headshots. She gets all your stuff. She uploads it. She gets the episodes posted. She knows dates. She got the whole shooting match. So on a podcast level, from the time I finished recording, actually, I don't even know who I'm talking to that day until I sit down at my desk that morning. I sit down at my desk and there's a sheet of everybody I'm talking to with all their bios, and it's all right here in the same document every single day. And so I sit down, in which, I'm doing a daily podcast. So it's a lot of talking to. And without that system, that cuts out an extra 10 or 15 hours probably a week of, administrative stuff. And so she helps out with all sorts of administrative stuff on the back end. Anything that's repetitive and not hyper creative, like if, hey, this is a task that you don't have to recreate the wheel on every time. I try to pass it off as often as I can just to get my time back. It's a investment. It's $5 to $7 an hour.
Yeah, it sounds like a no-brainer. As I mentioned to you beforehand, I'm hesitant because I've had some bad experiences with it, but I guess it's just trial and error, right? Just finding the right person who can follow instructions, get the job done.
That's it. And one of the ways that I like to hire, if you're using a VA, is on a per task to start out. Hey, I've got this one task. It's a 10-hour task. Do they get it done? I had a task I hired somebody for 3 months ago. They're still not done. It's okay. It was not a high value task. It was a dry run because I had more stuff coming down the line for that person, but that person is not going to get the rest of because the task is still unfinished. It's like, okay, well,
you tried.
What I lose? $20?
Right.
Like, okay. Yeah. So anyway, that's one of the ways that I like to kind of vet VAs is to start with small tasks out of the gate.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's important because a lot of people listening to this might be thinking, okay, I need to scale, I need to get things done, and myself included. Right? There are things that I do on a daily basis that I could easily have someone do for me on my behalf if I just taught them how to do it. And I think a lot of us struggle with that. And when you start handing off those $10 tasks to other people, you can use your time that is much more valuable to do much more bigger a bigger investment of your time.
Absolutely.
In fact, I'm reading this book right now that was recommended to me by Logan Freeman. I don't know if you're from Live Free Investments. It's called, I don't know if you can see it on the screen here. It's reversed, but Detox, Declutter, Dominate. How to Excel by Elimination. And so that's something that he's just going through certain tasks, how you value your time and what to kind of hand off to other people.
That's awesome. Yeah. Good for you. I look forward to hearing what your improvements are when you're done with it. That'll be fun.
Right. Yeah. I'm working on it. That's definitely what I'm working on right now. But yeah, and I'd love to hear a little more about what you've done in the, I know you said you had some parking lots, you had some self-storage, an RV park, other things like that. Are there any other types of investments that are kind of out of the box? And I would consider those, parking lots and RV parks a little bit out of the box. I mean, we all hear about single family, multifamily, even self-storage is very, very kind of mainstream. Is there any type of investments that are kind of out of the box that you have gone into or are looking to get into?
Yes, absolutely. I think, anytime you can find a fragmented industry that looks just like it did 30 years ago, it's ripe for either innovation or for consolidation, right? And so we actually bought, and it's the first of what I hope is, because I've just really in the last 9 to 12 months proved the model, but bought a laundry facility, a laundromat, corner laundromat, right? You don't think much of them. You really don't. You pass by and you're like, oh, okay, it's a laundromat. They're actually really expensive to get off the ground as far as just mom and pop operations. Commercial laundry equipment's really expensive. Yeah. So anyway, at the end of 2018, I bought a laundromat, and I mean, our cash on cash returns in that business are well north of 50%. Wow. Probably push 60, and it's a hands-off investment for me. So, I mean, it turned 6 figures for us last year in net operating income. And I really I might put an hour a week in, like maybe. My wife works a little harder at it because she enjoys it. It's kind of her neighborhood, and it's a social outreach, not social outreach, but it's a neighborhood outreach for us too. Mm-hmm. We live in a lower socioeconomic area on purpose in our own neighborhood, and it's a really cool community center. We've turned into like this. Laundromats are sketchy, right? You go into a laundromat and you're like, okay, am I going to get stabbed while I'm trying to get my clothes clean? So we've just got bright lights on 24/7. It's always staffed. It's security cameras everywhere. It's super clean. Wow! Like you walk in and it's a good space. But it's a fun little business because they're all mom and pop owned, right? Like how many laundromat? Have you ever seen a national laundromat chain? Might be.
Not that I know of, but yeah, they might.
Right. And so I've got this wild idea that maybe someday we'll become the McDonald's of laundromats because they're fairly passive investments. Mm-hmm. Once you get up and running, you need some maintenance staff, you need some staff on site, but I mean those are just not that complicated. Yeah. So once the plumbing and the wiring and the machines are in, it's just self-serve.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. In fact, we had KK Singh on this podcast not too long ago, quite a while ago actually. He was probably the first 20 guests of the show. KK, he's based in Fort Wayne, and we're up to 120 episodes. And this might be actually probably about like 140 by the time we get yours out. Sure. We're about 20 back. But today, whenever this is, we release episode 120 today. Anyways, KK Singh, he's based in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a friend of mine, and he owns a couple of laundromats. And he actually spoke with us on our weekly meetup way back about the business. Literally went through the numbers and everything. It was fascinating to me. He said that getting into it is difficult because there's that upfront investment, right? Obviously, but there's like he said, 6 figures, right? are turning 50% or 60% to cash on cash. It's crazy. That's incredible. What was most fascinating to me is that he said it was totally hands off. He specifically only invests in machines that are all no coin operation, number one, and everything is digital. Like everything is digital. So he has security. He can access everything from his phone or from his computer inside the laundromat, which is, miles away from where he is.
Right. That's brilliant. And that's another way of using VAs and people like that you could have them check in at certain times of the day. Hey, check in, put this on your report. Is there something goofy going on? Is there homeless people sleeping in there? Is there, in the areas, and good for him for figuring that out. We are still coin operated just because of the demographic that we serve as a very cash heavy demographic. And so I think it would really not do us any favors to go all card or something, which we do have that capacity as well.
Right.
But I guess that's getting into weeds probably a little bit. But
right.
Yeah, it's absolutely a fascinating little like, wait, I kind of just fell into it. And it's like, this is actually a cool little business niche that I could own 5 or 6 of these and I'd disappear. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate that because there are all these little things, people have these investments or have these ideas that, until you hear about it, you never even knew they existed or knew that the possibility was as feasible as it can be.
Yeah, absolutely true. And it, and I think it's scalable too. So that's the other fun part about it.
Well, it's scalable, but on the other hand, it's obviously, like you said, they are very demographic specific. So I'm sure in your demographic of where you are in Memphis, they're probably everywhere, right? You probably find them in every few miles. You'll find another one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So at this point, I'd love to transition into what we call the final 4. These are 4 questions I ask all of our guests at the end of the show. And so the first question for you, Sam, is what is the worst job that you ever had?
Man, I've worked a lot of different jobs. Oh, gosh.
You can list more than one if you really want.
Right. So there's this thing called detasseling corn. Now, what state are you in, Jan?
What is that? What is it called?
Detasseling corn.
Has to do with farming. I've lived mostly in California, but yeah.
Okay, in California. So it's a Midwest thing. Happens a lot up in Iowa and places like that. I'm sure you've heard of a hybrid seed or a hybrid corn, right?
Yeah.
Sure, you've heard of a hybrid plant.
Right.
Corn is a self-pollinating plant.
Right.
In the sense you could put one seed in the ground, it will self-pollinate and produce an ear of corn. Most plants aren't that way. So in order to get a hybrid, you have to pull the pollen, the pollination. I don't know what you call it, pistil, the stamen. I can't remember which one it is. I don't know. You got to pull it physically out of the plant if you're going to make a hybrid. And so the only way you can do that is to put what they call the male rows. So there's 4 rows of female rows and 1 male row. And you have to pull all of the pollen producing part of the plant out by hand. Okay. And so we went up and did this in Iowa. I grew up in Indiana, but long story short, I was in Iowa in high school making $9 an hour. We thought we were getting rich. And it was maybe 115 degrees. No joke. And you're out there fully clothed, head to toe. Actually had a guest on this show that knew about detasseling corn. And you had to walk through these fields that were, a half mile long, half mile back. And all those little tiny fibers from the corn plant on the corn stalks would get in you and they would irritate and they'd cause this thing called corn rash. So you're sweating to death, 115 degrees, covered in head to toe in clothing to keep as much of that out as you can. It would get in your boots. It would get in your elbows. You get in your armpits, in your neck, all for $9 an hour. And we just do it I think we calculated we walked 23 miles a day doing it. And we worked from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we just did it for, 10 days straight. And it was just like, I did it 2 summers in a row like an idiot. I'm like, this is no fun. I'm never doing that again. But wow. That's how you get a hybrid corn is by pulling that thing out. So you walk along, reaching up, just pulling them out, walking along. And then the male rows would cross pollinate with the female rows. They cut the male rows out because that's not the corn they want. And they would keep the 4 female rows. And now you have a hybrid seed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, now I know what not to do, right? Ever looking for a good job, right? That's
definitely not. Iowa, go detassel corn. Everybody does it, so go for it.
If I ever have anyone on the show from Iowa, I'll have a good talking point. Hey, you ever do any detasseling of corn out there?
Exactly right.
They'll know it. Well, awesome. That's good to hear. I guess in high school, we all do crazy jobs. And it's really interesting because most of the time, I would say at least 80% of the time, the answers of the guests on the show is a job that they had in high school.
Yeah.
Right? Invariably, right? It's predictable, but it's funny because it really shows, right? We do things when we're young that are kind of stupid. We don't really think through it. And we learn very quickly, I never want to do anything like that ever again.
Correct. Exactly right. Ever again.
Yeah. And I think that speaks volumes to the type of people that come on the show that are, mostly entrepreneurs that learn, okay, menial work or right, physical labor, it's not for me.
Right. Yeah. And it goes back to the same thing I've hit over and over again. It's not scalable because it depends solely upon my own effort.
Right.
And that just doesn't work.
Exactly. Awesome. Okay. So second question, moving right along, is what is a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
There's a book called Mastering the Market Cycle by Howard Marks. I don't know if you followed him at all. He's a long time. I won't even attempt to give his bio, but the book was really cool just in the sense that he kind of goes through the historic cycles of the market and really analyzes investor sentiment and how investors typically are doing the wrong thing at the exact wrong times. And so at the end of it, it really gave me a lot of things to think about where it's like, oh, wait, anyway, I won't pre-sell the book, but that book, Mastering the Market Cycle by Howard Marks was a pretty good book to read. I read that in January this year and I'm like, oh, there you go.
Okay. So definitely, anyone looking for a different perspective on that should definitely check that out. Mastering Market Cycles. Okay. Put that in the show notes for anyone looking to read that. And we'll add that to the ever-growing book list. What is a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
Yeah, I'd love to learn. I've always wanted to play the piano, and it's something that you keep putting it off. So here I am turning 40 this year, and I still can't really play the piano. Not even sure why. I mean, I don't have any aspirations of being musical talent, but that's something I'd love to learn.
Well, get on it. Now we're challenging you. Now that you've put it out there and said it, we'll get like an online app or something to teach you take lessons. And it's really just one of those things that you need just repetitive over and over and over and over. You need to just put in the time and be consistent about it to make it happen.
Said it.
All right. Well, we'll check back in 6 months and see how your progression is.
I had a little lamb. Don't waste your time.
Hot cross buns. I can play that one. What does success mean to you, Sam?
2 things. Well, I guess 3. I lied. 3 things: health, wealth, and time. And wealth. It's probably a lot lower number for me than what actually the wealth would be. Probably the number 3. First being health, second being time, and the third being wealth. But you really don't get your time back until you get your wealth set straight, right? So it takes a certain amount of income in order to get your time back. And so I think once those things are accomplished, getting my time back is the ultimate time back with health would be the ultimate combo there. So yeah, I guess health, wealth, and time. Those are the 3 things that success looks like for me, but time mostly.
That's awesome. And I think, what you said is very, for people that haven't heard that before, to have get your time back, meaning use your wealth to have your money work for you so that you don't have to spend the time doing that. Because as you said, right, things that aren't scalable, you have to put in the time to do it. And your time is very valuable. And when you, as you learn and grow to come to learn that your time is much more valuable than you're actually valuing it at, right? When you do that one thing that you realize, wow, this action or this sequence of actions I did just made me X, 10X of what I even imagined. Now you got to refocus your energies. How can I do more of that?
Right. You got it. You said it, man. That's exactly right.
Well, awesome. Well, it's been a tremendous pleasure speaking with you briefly here today, Sam. Where can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Yeah, man. Find us at the Bricken Investment. Go to brickeninvestmentgroup.com, BRICKEN investmentgroup.com. If you are looking at real estate, is it okay to give a shameless plug here? Yeah?
Go for it.
Cool, man. If you're looking at real estate and you're looking and you run into struggles vetting deals, I've got a guide on there. It's called How to Vet a Deal in 10 Minutes. So go to brickeninvestmentgroup.com/checklist. And there will be a guide that will really help you focus in on the deals you're looking at and help you vet a deal in 10 minutes or less.
Awesome. That's a great tool. Sounds like. So we'll definitely put that in the show notes as well for anyone to check that out. And just, thank you again for your time. It's been, as you said, time is money, right? Time is very valuable. So I appreciate you taking that time today and spending it with me.
Awesome. Thank you, Yona. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, my pleasure. And to all of our listeners, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.